Welcome, I'm Neal McEwen and this is Phippen Highlights and Tall Tales. Today we're going to look at one of the museum's favorite pieces. This is a painting by George Phippen on loan from the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center. It's captioned, "Noonday Change of Horses." George is best known as a chronicler of contemporary cowboy activities. But this piece takes us back in history to the time of the Great Cattle Drives, which extended from about 1867 to 1890. The heyday of the cowboy was only about 25 years. And we know this is a historical piece based on the outfits we see these characters wearing and a few other things. Note the slouchy hats, no fine Stetsons here. All of these boys are packing heat. They've got their hog legs on, their pistols. And probably the most telling feature in this painting are the saddles. You see these slick forks and high cantles, and essentially very light saddles. This is characteristic of saddles in the 1880s, 1890s. What we see here are the cowboys and a herd of horses. Collecting the horses like this is a change of mounts during the noonday, but this is called a jingling. And that line comes from actually collecting the horses at the beginning of the day, around 4 a.m. The wrangler would go out and round up the horses before the beginning of the day. And at 4 a.m. those horses will have ranged on the prairie, grazing. They may be over a hill and out of sight. So typically the cowboys would hang a cowbell off of one of the more mature horses, and this would be called the bell mare. And that wrangler would find the herd by listening for the jingling sound of that bell mare. And so when he finds the herd, and horses being herd animals will stay together, it's his job to bring that pack of horses into the camp. And they'll be coming over the hill jingling, hence the name jingling. On a trail drive like this, there's a strictly defined hierarchy of responsibilities. At the top, you've got the trail boss, who may also be the owner. Second in command might be the cookie, if he's particularly good at his task. And also, second or third in command is going to be the head wrangler. The head wrangler is responsible for this horse herd. This herd is called, down south, it's called a remuda from the Spanish. And when you get farther north, where Spanish wasn't too common, this would be called a cavy, this collection of horses. Probably the same root word as cavalry or cavaliera. In any event, we are now in the empire of the head wrangler. Cowboys are at the lower end of the pecking order, you might say. They don't own these horses. They show up with a bedroll and the clothes on their back. They're hired hands. There is a pecking order in the cowboys, though. The more talented, more mature cowboys, the more skilled, are going to have their choice of assignments. And they'll also have their choice of mounts. Farther down, it's the luck of the draw. If you're new to the game, it's whatever the wrangler can pull out of the herd. If you're lucky, it's got 4 feet. Let's take a look now at what's going on within this remuda. First, take note of this cranky old guy here. That's the head wrangler. And we know that because he's the only one that's not doing anything. He's supervising. Next to him is a wrangler. Now, a wrangler has no responsibilities outside of the horse herd. He does not cowboy with the rest of these characters. He doesn't involve himself with the cattle side of things. His responsibility is strictly to the horse team. The folks standing around are the cowboys, and they are forming a live pen. As you can see, they've extended their lariats and there are probably 8 to 10 of these characters going around the herd to keep them constrained. Let's take a look at the wrangler for a minute now. You can see his body is extended as he tosses that loop. The wrangler is in the process of lassoing one of these ponies, that black pony in the background. And it's going to be given to a cowboy who will set it up with a saddle and a bridle and go to work. The wrangler is doing something unique with that loop. Typically, you think of a cowboy throwing a rope, spinning it in the air, and relying on centrifugal force to open the loop up and propel it towards the animal that he's hoping to lasso. The wrangler can't do that, because if he was to swing that rope in the air like you typically would, it would spook these horses and they'd be all over the countryside. So that wrangler has to start out with an open loop on the ground. He takes that open loop and through a single toss, an overhand toss, he'll point it at the animal he's trying to catch. And that's why you see him straining to throw his whole body into getting that loop over the horse. And it's remarkable that George Phippen captured that kind of detail. But that's exactly what's going on there. That loop, by the way, that overhand open loop is called the hula hand. Another question you might ask is, why all the horses? And the answer is a typical trail drive. Cowboys will go through 3, maybe 4 mounts in a day. And there'll be horses that are especially attuned and compatible with working the evening hours as well. Quiet animals that aren't going to spook the herd. So, looking at this, we see a remuda or cavy of about 40 horses. That says we're dealing with between 10 and 15 cowboys. And that tells us that this particular drive probably involves anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 cattle. Let's look at the remuda again. You can see 2 distinct activities going on here. This collection of horses are about to go to work, and so you're looking at the wrong end. They were happy grazing, and they have no particular desire to go to work in the afternoon. This collection of horses, they're all kind of bellied up to this line. And of course, being herd animals and simple souls, through practice and repetition, they will do that. They will line up together. In any event, you got the boys that don't want to play in the afternoon and the boys that are taking a rest. There's a third activity in this painting that's going on that may or may not be related to the noonday change of horses, and that's associated with this central figure right here. Something unique about that horse, he doesn't play well with others. This is what we would call green broke, a green broke horse. And you can tell that because he's been hobbled. He's got that foot hung up on what's called a Scotch hobble, which is a soft cotton robe so that it doesn't irritate his legs or his neck. And this keeps him from dancing around and kicking. The other thing you'll notice about this pony is he's got a blinder on. That blinder will keep him focused on his work and gives him no excuse to bolt, buck, and throw his rider. If the grass moves or a bunny hops out, that horse is going to take the opportunity to say, "Woof, I'm scared," and you're out of here. So those blinders are used to keep him focused. The last thing to take note of is the rig on his face here. This is called a bosal, and the bosal is a heavy rawhide braided halter that's used for training. It relies on the weight and the pressure on the horse's face right in there. Braided horsehair rope is in the Spanish called a macate. Of course, in cowboy lingo, that became the McCarty. So once again, this pony, when he's saddled up, may or may not participate in the activities of controlling this herd, because he's going to be a little unpredictable. And most likely, he's going to put on a show for these other cowboys, because as soon as that saddle hits his back, he's going to want to bolt and jump, and he's going to want to throw his rider. So there's a lot going on right here. So there it is, George Phippen's tribute to the Old West cattle drive, captured in oil and preserved for posterity and our enjoyment through today. Thanks for taking some time with us, and we'll do this again.